give the keys of the kingdom of heaven. My brothers and sisters, the Lord is with you.
And with your spirit.
A proclamation from the Holy Gospel according to St. Matthew. At that time, Jesus went into the region of Caesarea Philippi, and he asked his disciples, "Who do people say that the Son of Man is?" They replied, "Some say John the Baptist, others Elijah, still others Jeremiah or one of the prophets." Jesus said to them, "But who do you say that I am?" Simon Peter said in reply, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." Jesus said to him in reply, "Blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my heavenly Father. And so I say to you, you are Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of the nether world shall not prevail against it. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven." Then Jesus strictly ordered his disciples to tell no one that he was the Christ. My brothers and sisters, the Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
My brothers and sisters, is God our focus and our priority? Each one of us has the answer for ourselves. Is God our focus and our priority? Why did I pose this question? Because the gospel passage taken from Matthew chapter 16, verses 13 to 20 has often been misunderstood. There are elements that if one just read could not understand. And I want to bring up these elements for you to consider so that you can understand deeply what this conversation means for each of us. Not just a story that Matthew was writing in Greek for particular audience, but this is the proclamation that can be echoed and broadcasted to the entire world and many generations, including ourselves. First, to understand why Jesus started to ask the disciples, "Who do people say that the Son of Man is?" we need to understand this is verse 13 of chapter 16. Beginning chapter 16, Matthew placed the readers, the audience, into the circumstances that many Pharisees became frustrated with Jesus. They confused, who is this gentleman whose name's Jesus? So they try to push Jesus to the edge a little bit to test him, to show his true identity. Amidst of this confused identity, Jesus took his disciples aside, asking them, placing them to face the truth of whom they have been following. Who do people say? Technically, in Greek, there is no identification clearly if the people means the disciples or any people. We don't know. But Jesus set up his audience here, the disciples, to face not Jesus who stands before them, but to face their hearts. Jesus wanted them to tell him in depth of your heart who I am. Therefore, I asked you at the beginning, if we focus on God, if God is our priority, can you tell people who God is? Jesus here did not say his name, but posed a title that was taken from the book of Daniel. The prophets promises that God will send his son to govern, to be with. And you see here, Jesus gave the disciples a hint to the answer. The promise has been a continuing response from God to the people. Therefore, the man whose name Jesus was there. Jesus already set them up. See how they respond. They were so distracted. Oh, they say. And many say. Jesus knelt them down to the point. But you, tell me about you. Not telling me about what you have been doing, but whom you think I am. So now Jesus is very frank and direct, bringing them into a direct and personal relationship, you and I. Because I am the truth, Jesus said, I want you to be true. When you come to me, when you live in relationship with me. Let me take a moment here and ask you, in your relationship, do you expect people to be true to you? You don't want to date a liar. You don't want to be cheated in any relationship, even within your family. So, you know, Jesus did not set a too high standard, but he went into direct point of our life. Be real. I often say to people, when you come, even my spiritual directives who comes to me for spiritual direction, the best thing that God asks of you is be real. At least to yourself and to God. If you cannot be real, you don't know who you are. So first, let us learn from what Jesus challenged his disciples. Be direct to God. Pay attention on your own relationship with God. And if you live with your own relationship with God, you will understand when Jesus directed the disciple. Simon went ahead and gave him the response, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." Jesus' answer was perfect. You are the Christ. You did not come on your own. You came because God sent you. Here we can go back to the first reading, taken from the book of the prophet Isaiah. God said to people, no matter who want to be the master, I want the master like this, the one who can take on my will, the one who shall be a father to all the people of Jerusalem. The master, the leader in the model of God is a father. Maybe in your life you encounter such bad father. Those who live irresponsible, those who've been addicted to alcohol or drugs, those who created or live with domestic violence. I remember I mentioned to you, I was so struck to read this book and I cannot forget. The book Who the God of Christ is composed of all the talks and speech and meditation of the young priest Joseph Ratzinger in 1976 when he celebrated his 25th anniversary as priesthood. His students designed a book, a collection of his talks and speech and meditation. And I remember vividly one of his talks about God. He said this: we should not and we shall not frame God in only the image of Father, because people do experience bad father. But we need to come to real identity of God, who is love. I was taught to pray in the Jesuit novitiate. You can meet with God in any circumstances. This is my novice master said. I didn't say that. Even in the restroom, you got trouble, talk to God. And you don't need to put on a good dress code to come before the Blessed Sacrament. You can just open the door of the chapel and tell him, "Hey, Jesus, I'm feeling good." How can we be true to God is the key to the kingdom. So now we go back to the text. When Simon Peter proclaimed, last night Father David Rollo gave a wonderful homily, and I tried not to listen because I don't want his homily to be my homily today. But he said that what Peter said to Jesus is the profession of faith that we read every time we gather. And now I remember last time I complained at the end of Mass that the community did not read the profession of faith very well. And you look at me laughing, smiling, and I thought I was correct. But after Mass, somebody approached me and said, "Well, Father, you know, the screen didn't show up anything, and we didn't know what to read." That reflection remained with me until now. Sometimes we think we believe in God, but in order to profess our faith together, we need to read. impress me in a positive way. You don't want to profess a God by yourself, but together with the church. You don't want to profess a God in accordance with your own experience of bad mood or good mood. You want to profess a true God that the church teaches us to believe. So, excuse me that I blame you for not reading the profession of faith very well. But that's a good element for me to pray. You helped me to pray last week. Thank you. Thanks for being true to me as I try to be real to you. When Peter professed his faith, this is a very important. I want you to pay attention. Many people misunderstood this key element. When Peter said, "You are Simon, you are Peter, upon this rock I will build my church." In Greek, Peter is Petrus. Petrus can be a rock or a stone. But when Jesus entrusted Peter a mission, he used the word Petra, means the substance or a real material of a stone or a rock. So Jesus did not say that I will build my church on the gentleman whose name is Simon Peter. But Jesus said, I build the rock on the faith that you just profess. I build my church, and the church here is on people who gather with one belief in God. You are the church. The church is not the building. The church is the community. It is the relationship between man and woman and all kind of people who believe in God and who believe that God leads us to the kingdom, not lead us to a revolution of this earth. So understanding is the key. Knowing God is the key to the kingdom. And immediately why we understand why Jesus said, what you bind on earth shall be bound in the heaven, and what you loose on earth. Jesus did not say that I give the church the power to take my place. Jesus said the leader or leaders of the church is the one who live and act in communion with me. So we, the church, we don't use our own power to lead people, but we rely on the knowledge of God to help people to come to understand the true God. That is evangelization. We cannot introduce people about God if we don't know who God is. Therefore, today in the second reading, the letter of Paul written to the Romans is the phrase that you hear every single Eucharist. This part of the Eucharist, the liturgy, calls the exhortation. You know where is it yet? St. Paul wrote to the Romans, from him and through him and for him are all things. His glory be forever. You remember where is it in the Mass? When you hear this, if you were sleeping, you will be awakened because you were kneeling and you're about to stand up. You know where is it yet? The end of the Eucharistic prayer, when the presider and his concelebrant or the deacon uphold the pattern that carry the host, and the chalice carries the blood of Christ, saying, through him, with him, and in him. You see? I'm sure sometimes Chris, my brother Chris, we often forget what the meaning of that. Every prayers of the church in God, to God, and from God. This is the truth of God. Good Father knows what a child needs. You see, there's mothers in the church. Mothers know when the child needs some fresh air. Mothers know when the child needs to eat and go. Mothers know when Father Joseph starts to speak loud and hold the child to make sure he feels safe. Good mothers, good fathers know. So when we go to God, we don't need to tell Him what to do. Ask Him to help us to understand what we are going to do with Him. So the encounter between Jesus and the disciples, in particularly the profession of faith of Peter, teaches us the lesson. It's good that we need to read the profession of faith, but it is the best if we understand what it is and live it. So, my advice for this week: every day, this is a very challenge. Every day at noon, no matter you are on phone or lunch or brunch or meeting or siesta, every day at noontime, try to remember you are with God. Just remember you are with God at noontime. The whole community will be together at noon, every day. No matter where you are, what you're doing, who you are. At noon, we gather as a community of faith before God. And you can recognize God in the person whom you're calling and talking with, in the person whom you're having lunch with, in the person whom you're having meeting with. God is real. He is a living God. He's not the God in the statue or the figure in the history. He is living God. That is my advice. And I pray from that advice that you come to be real as you have come to know true God. I got to admit this. Many people have had bad experience with the church because the way we preach this gospel, especially those who live in the marriage circumstances. Many times I have told you, the church needs disciplinary, but the church needs to live the mercy. If you are living with the obstacle that cannot enable you to be full in communion with the church, remember, God is above all. Don't ever forget that. Don't ever lose your hope. In the end, God is the key. God is the decision. And that understanding can help us in our business relationship. When you do business with people, you try to be frank, fair, and focused. The focus here is the focus on God. We are Christians. In anything we do, business or doing our job, be Christian. First and foremost, you can lose a contract, you can lose a job, but maintain a good Christian. This is the key to the kingdom. The key to the kingdom is not the successful of any business or job. The key to the kingdom is knowing God is the salvation. So if you live your faith well, you know sometimes you have to be frank with people. You cannot compromise with people in any situations. You got to protect the truth. And the truth will help us to live in peace. See you at noon every day.